Okay, so in this example, we're now going to put into practice some of the CSS styling that we have looked at in the previous two videos. Okay, up until this point, the only real styling we've done is changing text to red and also using a bit of red and an italic text here. The rest of the document is just using pure HTML. We've got list items in there. We've got table items, paragraphs, some line breaks. Essentially, not an awful lot is going on. So the first thing I'm going to do is to try and tidy it up. The page basically spills over to the right, and there's no real kind of defined box that everything fits into. Now, in a simple page like this, it's actually very easy to just make an amendment to the body tag. I'm going to work hand code in this because using the CSS Designer box sometimes limits what you can achieve, whereas hand coding, you get a lot of code hinting. So body, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the body to have a specific width. And that width will be, say, 1200 pixels. 1000 pixels. It should fit on most devices at that size and relatively sized. If you just have a quick look at the page with that change in place, you'll notice extra 0 in there. That's what happens when you put 100 pixels. That's even smaller than the smallest of screens. 1000 pixels is a little bit more acceptable. So then most of the content fits within a more formed structure there. I can also give a background color. I'll just choose something a little bit straightforward. That's the document background color. I'm then going to play with the margin of the body. If I set the margin to auto and I've set a width value which is less than the page size, what it does is it gives an automatic margin either side of the page, thus positioning it in the center. Okay. Now I could say with my source code, position everything in document inside of an article tag, or it could be a div tag. And this just allows me to give a big container for the whole thing. Generally speaking, I would probably want to break it up into sections. But for now, I'll just stick with article. Save that document. And in the CSS, I can then affect the article tag. Notice that I don't need to use a prefix of a dot, which is used for a class. And I'll tell the article that its background color will be white. And that's the shorthand for that is FFF, because it's FFS is the same as 6S. Okay. Then I've got a white box, and we can see straight away the margin at the top of the page for the article, which I'm hoping I'll be able to get rid of by going margin top 0. And we might also want to get one margin top to be 0, pixels 2. And therefore we now see, so the two elements would have both created a bit of a margin. And now we've made sure that space at the top is gone. Also notice that the text is very close to the edge on the left-hand side, inside of the article. So what I'd like to do is put some padding on there. I'm just going to go with padding left and padding right of about 10 pixels. I'll be nice and generous with this. Copy and paste that, change the left to the right. That's how it's highlighted red because I've used the same property twice. So one would overwrite the other. There we go. The box actually gets bigger, although it's hard to tell because the margin stayed roughly around the same. There we go. Okay, so what we could do with doing in this example page that you've been working on is just tidying things up a little bit more. So it'd be nice to perhaps do the font family for the document. If we want to do that for the document, we could set that in the body, or we could set that in the article. So I might go with font family for my written text. Cambria is quite a nice typeface, so that'll do for the body text. If we just have a quick look at the page again, let's change ever so slightly. And then I'm going to set up some rules for H1, H2, H3, which are the headings that I've used. And in there, I might choose a different font family, something a little bit different. We go with this one here, Gothica, Gotham. Or in fact, I'll go with the Impact. It's quite a bold one. Have a look at this the page. It changes it quite heavily. It's a bit difficult to read there, so I might just take off the first two. I feel that changes it a little bit. Now, I've got a big piece of type going on. Just scroll up in the preview window than it does in the browser. Here, so heading 2, heading 1's been overwritten for some reason. So what I'm going to do in CSS is also set the font sizes using a relative measurement. So I can go font size, and rather than using a pixel value or a named value like large, what I can do is I can say I would like all of my headings to be 1.3. So that's 30% bigger. That's the 0.3 part. 1 EM would be the size that the browser says it's going to be. 1.3 sets it to be slightly bigger, but not huge. Let's have a look at what it looks like with 2EM. Bigger like that. 3EM, even bigger, and then you start to notice a difference because we've got H1 there, H2, and then H3. But 3 is massive, so I'm quite happy to have something like 1.3, 1.4. Okay, another thing we can do, be quite useful, is if we could set out text that's supposed to be in HTML to look slightly different. And what we can do is give a span class to something. And so what I'll do is I'll set up a class for code before I actually add it to anything, and I'll give that a background color. I'm looking for something slightly different, maybe a bit of a cream color. Let's save that for a second, and then back in the HTML page, what I'm looking to do is to highlight certain sets of text. I'll do that here. I'll just go class, code. Notice how it changes the appearance of that. I've also got a little bit down here. I'm talking about the CSS. Coincidentally, seeing as though we've been looking at CSS, the style sheet is made up of rules. So in the code view, this is a rule, this is a rule, this will be a rule when it's got some information put in it. So a style sheet is made up of rules. And the rules are defined by a selector, and then you've got curly brackets to open the series of properties that you're going to define, and then a curly bracket to say that this is the end of that selector's rule. The properties come in pairs, property, and then a colon. After the colon, we've got the value. So in this example, the property there is color, and the value is red. Okay, so moving down the page, I have got okay, so in this table, I'm going to make the first row look slightly different. So back in the source code for the CSS file, which is main CSS, I'm just going to give that background color a value. Okay. So now it means that when I choose a row in the table, I can set it to be row 1, or in this case, I'm going for column 1. Technically, row 1's not the right descriptor. I might just change that to col 1 and see if it updates. No, it doesn't update. Okay. Just need to make sure that I find and replace row 1 in the current document in the source code with col 1. I'll replace all. There we go. It should change all of them in front of us. Save the file. Hopefully, I then get a background color for that row, so I can tell the difference between a label and a value, I suppose, in this case, in that table. So you can see, playing with values, you can start to make the page look more comprehensive. Two other things we're going to look at before we finish this video, and that is we're going to look at using tooltips to make things a little bit more interactive, only a touch, and also a nested list. So in the document, if I scroll down, I've got a table with common HTML tags, and if I go through them, we've got A, which is for anchor, used to create links and point to links. B, which is just used to bold text, shouldn't really be used because it's styling. P, which denotes all paragraphs. Header, which is an area in the document. Footer, another area in the document. Main, aside, heading 1. Span, which is quite useful for affecting certain parts of text. So for example, I could highlight cascading style sheets here, give it a class of emphasized term. Same with HTML. and both of those will then be set up as a span, which you can see just down here when it's highlighted, and also in the split view span class emphasized term. We're going to be using span inside of the table. Actually, no, I'm just going to use the title for the table cell. So I've got the different values here, and if I put in a title and give that a value, B is for bold. I'll just do one more. Put a space in, title, B is for paragraph. And the remaining ones, we've got UL, span, which is just a span of text, a span of information. Table, what we've got in front of us there. Form, used to enter information from the user and then send to the server or to make interactive elements. Break, which is just a basic line break within a paragraph. UL, which is unordered list. OL, ordered list. LI, list item, which we'll see at the end of the document. And IMG, which is used for an image, just use self-closing tag. So, break can also be a self-closer, so I'll make them both unique like so. So doing this in the code view is a little bit easier because you can see the individual TD tags that you want to add something to. So, I mean, header is a meaningful tag for the header area page, I suppose. It's pretty self-explanatory, that one. And so for all of those, if you can create tooltips, and we go back to the page, refresh it, and just have a look at that table. You hover over for a second or two, each one of those terms appears, which is very useful way of getting definitions. And then the last bit is a nested list, and we'll do this in the design view. So at the bottom of the page, what I'm looking at is that files need to be kept organized, and here is an example file structure. So the document root is the main folder of the website. When you type in a URL, it takes you to the root folder, and in there would usually be your main HTML files. But within that would be subfolders. Now, subfolders in themselves can be websites, but in this case, they're just places where we keep our content organized. You could even go to subfolders within those areas if you had literally thousands of images or thousands of JavaScript files. So the root contains some subfolders in this example. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create an unordered list, which gives everything a bullet point. And then if I indent images, let's change the actually what I'm going to do is just take these out of the list to start off with, cut it, return in, and then indent. Same icon, okay. Very well then. Indent a whole lot, and that gives another level. It should be a different icon to that. Let's just double check the code. So essentially what we've got is an unordered list, the first list item root, and before the end of that list item, which is here, we are then creating a new list. And so this allows us to indent and create sub-levels of a list. And there we're putting images, CSS, JavaScript, includes videos and audio. And the whole list is then closed by another /ul. So that closes the sub list there, closes the original list item, which is the root there, and then this closes the whole thing. And then at the bottom of the page, we've got the article closed, the body closed, the HTML closed, and that's the end of the document. So if we just save that and have a quick look at what it looks like in the page, in the browser, it hasn't given us the question mark. It's just given us the default sub or indented level of a list, and we'll end it there.